What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the Game of the Year Madness bracket has officially started with voting on the community page, and I'll talk about it here basically every day throughout the entire tournament during the poll section. And so far, we've had F099 go over Starfield. You can blame Nate for that, by the way. He did the write-in, all right? So that's at Direct Feed Games. And we had Liza P go over Jedi Survivor. Today, though, is RoboCop versus Humanity. So check that out, get your votes in, and we'll see where all this turns out about 40 or so days from now when we crown the winner for Game of the Year Madness. But today, we had an interesting Friday night actually ahead of the weekend as a game from Sony leaked out early and they had no choice but to announce this controversial release, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a game from Nintendo. It's finally happened. It's fallen off the sales charts, and I couldn't be happier. And we'll also be talking about a rare look within Nintendo as an ex-employee gave some of their thoughts around, well, what it was like to work there. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Dragon's Dogma 2. As we had sort of discussed this a bit, it appeared like that might be the game that Capcom is going to release before the end of this fiscal year, that being March 31st, 2024, and it's kind of shaping up like that really is going to happen. In fact, we may have even had a look at the release date as this showed up, we could see on the ratings board, and it happened while there was maintenance going on, almost like it kind of slipped through, with the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, S, and PC release dates being listed next to that PEGI 18 rating. March 22nd, 2024, that would just get in there right ahead of the end of that fiscal year. And then on top of that, we have an announcement from Dragon's Dogma saying that they're on Tuesday, November 28th, 1 p.m. Pacific time, there's a Dragon's Dogma 2 showcase. They're going to have brand new gameplay reveals and a whole bunch of info packed in this 15-minute live stream, which maybe that will include the release date. I kind of thought at the Game Awards, that would make sense to put that front and center in front of a ton of people, but who knows, maybe they'll do their own live stream here and say, hey, we'll see you next March for the release of the game. Also, there was a report that got out there around Wolverine, this of course coming from Insomniac, with the setting for it, but more importantly, when it could be coming out, and that sounds about what I was expecting. We can see this posted up over on Insider Gaming, where they say, according to known leaker Daniel Rickman, not only will the upcoming game not be released in 2024, but it will also be feature a darker and more violent tone than past games from the studio. And yeah, I assume this is a mature rating all the way from Insomniac, who typically, with like Spider-Man as an example, teen rating, right? So this will be interesting to see Insomniac kind of go to that mature rating for something in the Marvel universe with Wolverine. 2025, though, that's my expectation for it. Probably holiday, that would be their big release there, and I think it'll be really, really cool to see what Insomniac can do with Wolverine, because they have just been ascending constantly, release after release, with Spider-Man 2 being really, really good, up for Game of the Year nomination. Yeah, let's see what they can do with Wolverine in a game. Oh, and I have what I can only assume is good news for many people out there, especially with all the live service chatter going around with WB. It looks like Wonder Woman won't be that. In fact, it'll stick as a single-player game, and this was in response to a job listing that was going around. Seems like WB wanted to get out in front of this, as we can see this over on IGN, who did get the response. They say Warner Bros. Responding with a statement to IGN denying that it will be a live service game. Wonder Woman is a single-player action-adventure game set in a dynamic open world. They do cite the Nemesis system here. If you played like the Shadow of Mordor game or any of that, you kind of understand what that part of the game would be. But then also, Wonder Woman is not being designed as a live service. And again, for me, this is good news, because after hearing what WB said, hey, everything's live service, basically, I immediately looked at Wonder Woman, the job listing, it all lined up. So good to hear. While Suicide Squad, unfortunately, is not going this path, it's at least seems like it's going to be setting up as a more traditional single-player game, and that has me much more interested than if it was a live service game with Wonder Woman. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a very odd series of events that happened on Friday night. And this has to do with Naughty Dog's next big release. And in fact, it's due out here in just a couple of months. So what happened was this tweet went live and got the internet immediately talking, because it showed a picture of The Last of Us Part 2, PS5 with the check mark from PlayStation Game Size, who went on to say that this is a PS5 native version and it is now uploaded to the PlayStation database, which Okay, so here we go with The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Then a report comes out from, I believe, Insider Gaming, and then the trailer got out there, and then Naughty Dog shows up and says, hey, you know what, here it is. Last of Us Part 2 players on PS4 can upgrade to The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered on PS5 for $10. Now, they do also go over the different things that'll be part of this course. Graphical enhancements, there's lost levels, full DualSense wireless controller integrations, new outfits, guitar free play, exclusive roguelike survival mode, this Last of Us Part 2 Remastered No Return. It looked kind of like a horde mode almost, and you'll be able to essentially stat out your different characters between rounds, and it's all randomized. And I mean, for people who are big fans of the kind of the gameplay as opposed to necessarily the story, you might look at this and say, hey, you know what, that's actually kind of interesting. I want to see how that turns out. But obviously, the big talking point here is, does The Last of Us Part 2 need a remaster if it's already on the system through backwards compatibility? Wouldn't it be better to just do a free update even for it and then kind of move on to maybe The Last of Us Part 3, which I believe they are working on now anyway, or maybe a new game instead of just remastering a game that's already available on the PlayStation 5 and charging that $10 upgrade fee that people seem to be, I guess, just more conditioned now to kind of accept that. And that's like, that's fine. It's $10. And that is true. It's not like it's like they're not charging you another $70, which was an immediate concern when all this stuff started leaking out. And I feel like that's one of the reasons we all of a sudden found out about this on a Friday night, is because they had to at least get that information out there that it's not going to be like just a $70 release like Last of Us Part 1 when they did that remake. Instead, though, the upgrade for people who currently own Last of Us Part 2 at $10 will get you the graphical features, which people posted screenshots. I mean, you could see, for example, I think Pyro posted one up, and am I missing it? It looks the same. So that's kind of where we are with diminishing returns at this point. They can say, hey, instead of 1440p, it's now in 4K, but we were already upscaling 1440p, and it's very difficult to notice unless you zoom in 1,000% or something. The obvious thing here is that they want to re-release Last of Us Part 2 as a PlayStation 5 native game on store shelves and have it set up to go alongside of the series, a year from now, or whenever all that's happening. And in that sense, I get it. They have Last of Us Part 1, Part 2, the games that will help to sell the PlayStation 5, I'm sure, alongside of what's a very popular series now. And interesting to see the audience's shock and everything that's going on there with that story as that progresses through the second season. But I'm trying to figure, I'm looking at this like, would I want to go back and play it again? I feel like I've had my fill of Last of Us Part 2, and I'm not necessarily inclined to go back to it this time. Maybe I'll see how things shake out with the no return roguelike mode, and if it looks interesting enough, maybe I'll check it out, but I feel like I'm good right now on what I've seen with The Last of Us Part 2 Remaster, and I'll kind of walk right past it, really. It's just not really pulling me in as I was thinking maybe they could if they had a more substantial piece of content to add onto it. And if you look at the like to dislikes on the trailer and stuff, it seems like, yeah, a lot of people are not very happy with the idea of getting a remaster of a PS4 game that already plays in their PS4 for an additional $10 with not really a ton necessarily going into it. But this is coming out January 19th, so again, a couple of months off, and you'll have the upgrade to the PS4 game that came out 3 years ago on your PS5. So there you go. Naughty Dog continuing to push forward with the big releases. Next up, let's talk about, now that I'm thinking about it, an upgrade that's going to make that The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered look really, really bad. So let's talk about how Half-Life got a very substantial update from Valve, and not only is the update free, they just made the entire game free, and it might still be free today. It was this weird thing where it's basically over the weekend, so the last time I did a news wave, it wasn't free, and then there's a good chance that it's not free now, but if it is, go check it out, claim it, add it to the library on Steam, because we can take a look at the webpage here for it. This is for the 25th anniversary for Half-Life, and they did quite a bit to this game, which, I mean, most people look back and remember it as an absolute classic, a staple in video game history, certainly a staple for Valve's history, and it makes sense why they're giving it this treatment. But like we could see here, where they talk about November 19th, 1998, pulling out some very old logos here, 3D effects, Sierra. I mean, definitely some classic stuff there. But the 25th anniversary update is doing quite a bit. Half-Life Uplink, that's originally released as a CD exclusive for magazines and hardware manufacturers. So you would buy a magazine, it would have a CD in it, and you would have demos, or in this case, just added content that you would get only through that. It's a mini campaign. It was built by the Half-Life team right after the game went gold. So really cool stuff there. There's 4 new, that's right, new multiplayer maps. They even say these new maps push the limits of what's possible in the Half-Life engine. You have updated graphic settings with widescreen now being added in. Options disable texture smoothing, software rendering on Linux, controller and Steam and networking support. Steam Deck, full support there. So hey, if you got a Steam Deck OLED, fire up Half-Life for the first time with this update to check it out. They also did UI scaling support. So because this game was designed for those old, as they mentioned, CRT monitors at 640 by 480, when you then took that and upped the resolution to 4K, a lot of the UI elements were very, very small on screen. So they went ahead and fixed that so you don't have to like squint or get out the magnifying glass to see it. And the list just goes on and on and on. There's a lot of stuff there. I will leave a link down in the sources for you to check out all the bug fixes and everything else there. But really cool stuff here by Valve for, again, an absolute classic from 25 years ago. Wow, that does make you feel old to realize that Half-Life came out 25 years ago. But what an experience then. And you know what? I still think it's worth going through if maybe you have not had a chance to play it. Maybe you're newer to games now, right? Or you weren't playing games 25 years ago. Yeah, I think it's absolutely worth picking up and checking out. Even on like the Steam Deck, now that it's fully supported, really cool game to load up now, especially with a bunch of new content, multiplayer maps, the whole thing. Next up, let's talk about the NPD or Circana sales charts. And there's something missing from these charts that has me fairly happy right now, because we could finally see that Nintendo is running out of people to sell Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to, which hopefully means the next Mario Kart is around the corner. Maybe we can see this post up, though, by Matt Piscatella, showing the top 20 games sold for October 2023. Of course, Marvel Spider-Man 2 at the top. And then we have Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Important to note, Mario Bros. Wonder, not counting digital copies, as Nintendo does not share that information. So keep that in mind. That's why a little asterisk is there. We have Assassin's Creed Mirage, which that's pretty good. Circana tracks by revenue. Mirage is a cheaper game than, it's not like a full price $70 game. So that's pretty good being in that 3 slot. Then we have Madden NFL 24, EA Sports 24, that's the FC, the football or soccer game, Mortal Kombat 1, UFC 5, NHL 24, Sonic Superstars, Hogwarts Legacy, Modern Warfare 2, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1, NBA 2K24, Starfield, Elden Ring, The Crew, Forza Motorsport. Wow, Forza Motorsport really down at 17. It's kind of surprising. Star Wars, Jedi Survivor, Minecraft, and then Lords of the Fallen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This is the first time the game has fallen out of the top 20 in the US since its release. Yes, this is the first time, which I understand it's going to be back next month. I know this because it's part of the bundle. Like, people who are buying the Switch now are getting Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So it's going to kind of inflate the charts there a bit. But then if it falls back out of the sales charts as we go into 2024, whether it's for January or February, I'll be like, finally, we're done with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which, by the way, in 5 months, 6 months, we're going to be celebrating the 10th anniversary for Mario Kart 8, which is still the newest Mario Kart game on console. So here's hoping that Nintendo, again, it's the sales charts and stuff, I get it. They would have had to have reacted a long time ago to have a game developed and ready to go, maybe for the launch of the next system. But I do think it shows that, yes, Nintendo is reaching that saturation point that we thought they would have reached a long time ago for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which hopefully means we can finally move on from what's been a decade-long, now live service that's kind of tied to a subscription service, and it's a strange phenomenon. This and GTA 5. Hey, maybe we can move on from both of them next year. That would be something. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a rare look inside of Nintendo from an ex-employee who actually described their time within Nintendo on Twitter. It was translated over by a bunch of outlets, and there were some pretty funny headlines that followed that I don't necessarily think painted the picture correctly, but I figured we would take a look at some of the quotes here, which we can see this posted up over on Nintendo Life. It did the translation here. And this is from a 45-year-old video game artist. I'm going to say Mira Koichi. and they had previously worked on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom as a landscape artist. So they say Nintendo is a great company, but I wouldn't recommend it to others easily because it was a nest of superhumans and geniuses. As an average person, it was hell for me. Thanks to that, I realized that it wasn't for me and went in a different direction. I was able to make up my mind to aim for this, and that is my greatest accomplishment from working at Nintendo. So I have no regrets about aiming for it and then giving up on it. They go on to say, let me repeat this so that there is no misunderstanding, but I really thought it was a very good company and the employees were wonderful people. I was convinced that such amazing products were being produced one after another. I had a valuable experience. Thank you very much for your support. I believe that using this experience to play an active role and contribute to society will be my way of repaying that favor. Now, it's very important to note that they also talked a bit about their salaries within Nintendo and other places, and it seems that Nintendo was paying like 50% more than basically any other place in Japan. So they weren't necessarily complaining about working within Nintendo, more or less saying, hey, the talent level there is like, they say superhuman, right? So you kind of get there and you look around and it's like, wow, everyone's really good at creating games. And they stick around within Nintendo for a long time. The people who made Super Mario Bros. Wonder, like produced, directed, all that, they made the original Mario Bros. They've been there this whole time working on 2D Mario games, then came back together for Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So when you have kind of that lineage, the very low turnover from Nintendo and the high pay, yeah, you're going to attract basically some of the best developers in Japan. And then many developers come from outside of Japan to work there. So it makes sense to kind of view it in that way, but it was kind of framed at times by different outlets as it being incredibly negative, like it was the worst experience for them, when it's kind of the opposite. It's like, wow, it was a great experience and it's now on my resume. So imagine going into any place that you're going to be working as, whether it's a freelancer and doing contract work with them, and you have Nintendo, and oh yeah, I did environments for Zelda. That's probably going to give you a leg up on your competition trying to get those jobs. So they seem fairly happy having worked at Nintendo and experienced it, and it seemed like it was more just them saying that it was a very impressive environment to work within and try to keep up with everyone around you. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, this being one of the rounds for Game of the Year Madness. In fact, we can see it. This is day 2, Lies of P taking on Jedi Survivor, and yeah, Lies of P ended up taking down Jedi Survivor, which, I did write in Lies of P, so there you go. I guess it's off and running. I figured Lies of P would do pretty well, but Jedi Survivor just got, went out of the gate. It didn't run well, so people still kind of look at it in that light, and they've been updating a lot. It runs a lot better now, but it still has some issues. It's a very good game, though. Like, the underlying part of it, the structure, it's a very fun game to play through. It's just, there were so many issues at launch that the first impression, and trust me, especially this year, 2023, with how many good games are out there, if that first impression doesn't land, many people just move on. There's other stuff to do, other things to play in a very crowded year. So it's not shocking that it necessarily wasn't able to beat out a game that I think made a good first impression right away with people for Lies of P. But later on today, 11 a.m. Eastern, the next poll will go up. That'll be day 3 for Game of the Year Madness, which will be RoboCop versus Humanity. So make sure you check out the community board and get your vote in. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Christian, who says, get ready for the first launched digital only for $70, only for the physical deluxe release a few months later for $80 to $90. I think this is kind of referencing how Baldur's Gate 3 is more expensive physically when it's obviously as a deluxe edition at $80, and they threw in a bunch of extra stuff. I feel like to make people look at that and say, okay, that's justified to have a more expensive physical release for it. But I also wonder if this generation, before it's all over, if we're going to see just an $80 game. Like, it's just $79.99, it's $90. And the reason I say that is because we have GTA 6 coming up, seemingly. we're going to at least get the debut trailer for it. But Take-Two has been making a lot of comments about the price of games. For example, Strauss Zelnick has mentioned that games should kind of be valued per hour. If this is a 100-hour game, it's $100. Something like that, right? So I think about that, and I look to GTA 5 and how many people are still playing the online aspect, have poured thousands of hours into it. How much money do they think GTA 6 should be, kind of with that in mind? So we'll see, but if GTA 6 came out and it was $80, I don't think that would have any effect on its sales. I think it would still do incredibly well, and that might have some other publishers raising their eyebrows at that and be like, oh, maybe we can get away with that too. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whether it's Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, are you thinking about going back to it and maybe doing the upgrade for $10? And what do you think about that announcement from Naughty Dog? And then also, what about Half-Life getting an update after 25 years? Are you going to be picking that up and revisiting that classic? And then what we're seeing here with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe finally falling out of the top 20 in the NPD or Circana. Do you think Nintendo will have the next big Mario Kart game lined up for launch of their next system? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.